So we've talked a lot about sports psychology and all the the goats in all the different sports and what sets them apart. So for the regular Joe, that's a weekend warrior or someone that's trying to stay in shape, playing in a flag football league or something like that, or just a regular guy like me, just a dad, and So how do we take these lessons from sports psychology and apply them to our regular daily lives?
I like to say that it's the athletic mindset. It's just the context that's different. So I have worked with musicians, artists, performing artists, actors, actresses, and it's the very same thing. Because if you want to do really well in something, if you want to run a 5K, I've applied this actually to populations of obesity and chronic pain. You want your marriage to be better. You want to be more spiritual, and whatever it is that you want to do, there's going to be thoughts and feelings that get in the way. And so when you adopt this attitude of what we call psychological flexibility, the ability to kind of stay really in touch with your goals and values, and then hold on a little bit more lightly to what you're thinking about and feeling, and be able to interact with them in a way that helps you take committed action towards those values and goals. That's really the formula. You do it by very much developing a present moment focus. And again, that lightness of being able to learn how to observe and get a little bit of distance from the automatic thoughts and feelings that aren't always helpful. Being able to choose your response, and you really need that again, very clear picture of who it is that you want to be, and then developing that willingness to do those things with those difficult thoughts and feelings in service of achieving it.
Mhm.
And that
Two
applies to everywhere.
follow-ups there. Sorry, the present moment focus. Could you expand a little bit on that, on what that is?
Yeah. So very often we are stuck in the past, whether it's like, I made that mistake, I don't want that bad thing to happen, or we develop this narrative of who we are based on our experiences. And I'm not saying that the past is a bad thing. We need to learn from it, review the film and learn from your mistakes. But sometimes we get caught up in that. Sometimes we get caught up in the future. This is particularly with the anxiety. How am I going to make the team? What's going to happen next? Am I, what's my future going to be? And again, we should plan on that. You got to plan for retirement, game plan for the next opponent. But our performance is ultimately right here, right now. No matter what I've got going on in the future or whatever happened to me in the past, nothing matters more as I'm performing than my ability to tune in right here and now. So, this podcast, for example, I could be worried about mistakes that I made in the past, or I could be worried about the next appointment that I have. And if I'm going to go into either one of those, I'm not going to be able to tune in and be my best self and answer your questions and have this great dialogue. If the moment requires us planning for our futures, well, then that's in the present moment. I'm planning, and that's the
Sure.
goal. It's okay. But ultimately, what our mind is built to do is often go to the past and the future, and so we have to develop this skill, often through mindfulness training is the way to do it. But how do I bring my attention back to right here and right now, and start to learn that my mind is evaluating or being a commentator? A colleague of mine had put it this way: are you the play-by-play guy or the commentator? Because the play-by-play guy tells you what's happening on this down or on this play, and is just very, very descriptive. And that's the guy we want to kind of listen to as we're performing in the moment. The commentator can talk about all this other stuff, but we kind of look at those two parts of our mind and say which one is talking. And we can listen to the commentator when it's helpful, but when he's unhelpful, we just want to turn down that volume and stick with the play-by-play guy.
Mhm.
That's how we can improve our performances in the moment.
So what are some a few practical tips that someone listening to this can apply right away, maybe to work on that, to exercise that muscle, or just to focus on goals and things like that? What are some easy
Yeah.
practical tips here?
The first one that I would say is to hold on to your thoughts and feelings lightly. That's easier said than done. I'll give you a resource here at the end about how to do that better. But the first one is to kind of recognize that your mind has a mind of its own, and that it can't always be trusted. The second big thing would be that what's important now. If you can really dial in, and I ask myself this question 20 times a day, if I'm getting distracted, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, okay, wait, what's important now? And then it'll reorient my attention, and then recognize that you can choose your attention. Some people are like, well, gosh, how do I do this? Da, da, da. I'm like, for a lot of people, it's just actually making the choice. You do have an automatic mind, but whether you're ruminating or staying in it, just recognize that you already possess the power to let go of that and put your attention where you want it. Now, you may have to do it over and over again, but just knowing that you have a choice can be very helpful. And start off with those three. Oh, number 4, get your sleep. As I said earlier, we are a sleep deprived group very often. That'll help you more than anything. Put that at the top of the list and then do the other 3.
Okay. I love it. All right. So where can people learn more about about you, about your approach, and about some of
Yeah.
these other things that they can do to, reach peak athletic performance, but in their daily lives.
Yeah, super excited. I've got some free resources for you on my website, dreddieoconnor.com, DREDDIEOCONNOR.com. The first is I've got a link to my Mental Toughness in 60 Seconds video series on YouTube, so you can catch that link. But what I'd really love for you is this free training that I have called What to Do When Positive Thinking Doesn't Work. You heard me freak out earlier about how we're always trying to be positive and have to feel confident so that we can play better. And that's simply not true. Again, if I'm going to send somebody to the Olympics, how am I supposed to tell them to just be optimistic? It doesn't make sense.
You use that phrase toxic positivity. I'm not super familiar with that.
Yeah, it's in the idea that a toxic in the sense that sometimes by just trying to be positive when I can't be positive. Like for example, we talked about those injured athletes. If you've got an injured athlete and you're just trying to tell them to be positive about it, that's going to really invalidate their feelings and cause them to struggle even more. There's like we
Hmm.
want to be able to lean into the difficulties, and that's what this training is about. Again, it's a quick training. It's free for you, called What to Do When Positive Thinking Doesn't Work. And it really teaches this skill of being able to unhook and look at your thoughts and feelings differently and be able to choose the ones that are going to help you more. Invest in those, but you don't have to be positive about it. You have to be a little bit more realistic. And as I said,
Hmm.
listen to that play by play guy, and that training will help you do that. Again, it's free on my website, dreddieoconnor.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Doctor. This was a pleasure. I learned a lot. I'm sure anyone listening or watching will learn a ton from you. So thank you again for coming on the show. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, lots of fun. Best wishes to everybody out there.
All right. Take care.